This screenshot, which I have shown in a couple of previous videos, really settles the debate regarding the low blow in the Usyk-Dubois fight. In boxing, punches below the navel, below the belly button, are completely illegal. Anybody trying to tell you otherwise is either completely ignorant about boxing rules or they are deliberately and consciously trying to mislead you and deceive you. They're lying. When the two fighters come to the center of the ring before the opening bell for the referee's final instructions, the referee will look at the waistlines of both fighters to see if their belly buttons are visible. If their belly buttons are not visible because the shorts are pulled a bit high, the referee will often say, if a punch strays onto the waistband, I'm not going to call it low because these shorts are high. But he still isn't going to allow punches below the navel or below where he thinks the navel is, so we'll sometimes kind of draw an invisible line on the guy's shorts and say punches from this point up are okay and from this point down are not okay. He didn't do that with the Alexander Usyk-Daniel Dubois fight, and it's kind of curious and ironic, right? If you have a look at the two fighters here in the middle of the ring, Dubois' shorts are actually higher than Usyk's shorts. Yes, I know Dubois is a little bit taller than Usyk, but look at the distance between the bottom of Daniel Dubois' pectoral muscle and the top of his shorts, and then compare that to the distance between the bottom of Alexander Usyk's pectoral muscle and the top of his shorts. There's a much bigger distance here than there is here. It's actually Daniel Dubois that's got the higher protector, the higher shorts. So if there was anyone who the referee should have said, look, your trunks are a bit high, I'm going to allow punches on the waistband, it would have been Dubois. Alexander Usyk's trunks are not particularly high here. Where do you imagine his belly button to be? Maybe slightly below the top of the shorts, about here? Certainly, going back to this, if we zoom in, there is absolutely no way that you can tell me this punch is landing above Alexander Usyk's belly button. Are you having a laugh? If we're being generous, we might say the belly button is about here, where Daniel Dubois' thumb is. The rest of the glove is way below the belly button, and therefore it's an illegal shot. Now, there are several screenshots out there which show the glove landing a bit higher on Alexander Usyk's waist, because Daniel Dubois' punch is kind of an uppercut type punch, is coming at that type of trajectory. Therefore, if you take a screenshot towards the end, the completion of the action of the punch, you're going to see the glove up here somewhere. But the initial point of contact, the initial impact, clearly is below the belly button, and therefore it is illegal. And as soon as I saw this screenshot and inspected it closely, I realized, okay, the debate is over here. It's an illegal punch. Now, the way that Don Charles and the whole of Team Dubois are carrying on at this stage is totally embarrassing in light of this evidence. You got Don Charles over here claiming that not only was Daniel Dubois robbed of victory, but that Alexander Usyk cheated. I mean, that's potentially slanderous. How on earth did Alexander Usyk cheat? If anything, your guy cheated, Daniel Dubois, whether it was intentional or not. He landed a low blow. And yet you're blaming the guy who got hit with the low blow and saying that he saw. How did he cheat, Don Charles? Now look, Don Charles, to be generous, has always been a very emotional character, and he's given to saying things that are a bit illogical at times because he allows his heart to rule his head. But in this instance, I'm just going to call it exactly like it is. This is buffoonish from Don Charles. Totally buffoonish. He's questioning Usyk's morality. I'm not sure if he's questioned his faith, but he's questioned his morality, saying that Usyk... How did Usyk cheat, Don Charles? Explain that to me. Your guy lands a low blow. Usyk goes down in agony. And when the referee decides that it's a low blow, the fighter has up to 5 minutes to recover. Everybody knows that's standard boxing rules. He didn't take more time than he was allowed. You are allowed up to 5 minutes in boxing to recover from a low blow. Simple. Don Charles knows that himself. So for him to be running around saying Usyk cheated is really extremely buffoonish. And you expect it from promoters, because promoters are just going to spin whatever they need to spin in order to fight their fighter's corner and look out for their own best interests. Whether it's Eddie Hearn, Frank Warren, Bob Arum, you name it, promoters behave that way. But when it comes to trainers, you normally get more sensible takes from them than you do from promoters. But in the case of Don Charles, his buffoonery has far surpassed the promoter Frank Warren in this instance. awful stuff from Don Charles. And thankfully, most people in the comments are echoing these sentiments, my sentiments here. So Don Charles and Team Dubois need to stop it. Now, with regards to Daniel Dubois himself, I'm just gonna give you my take on him. I think Dubois is an empty vessel. I don't really think there's much going on in there. I think he's little more than a sock puppet for Frank Warren and Don Charles. I don't think he has much ability to think for himself. That's just my impression of him. So of course we can put plenty of blame on him for being a crybaby. But look at the vacant look in his eyes. The lights are on but no one's home. Whereas with Don Charles, with Frank Warren, they know what they're doing more so than Daniel Dubois, I would say. That's my perception. Therefore, I'm going to be harsher on them than I am on Dubois himself. Because if you're trying to reason with Dubois, I mean, is that a fruitless or pointless exercise? Does he have much ability to reason? I mean, you guys tell me. And of course, you've got the unbelievable bias on TalkSport from the likes of Gareth A. Davis. I mean, Gareth A. Davis might as well be a Frank Warren employee. I'm not saying he is, I'm saying he might as well be. He might as well be a Frank Warren Team Fury employee with the line he always takes. And Simon Jordan's not far behind these days. But anyway, yeah, Don Charles making potentially slanderous allegations. How did Usyk cheat Don Charles? Please explain how he cheated when the screenshot clearly shows it's a punch that lands below the navel. That's a low blow, Don Charles. In the vast majority of fights, if you're landing punches here on your opponent, the referee's gonna pull you up for low blows. The opponent is gonna complain about low blows. Has everyone got the memory of goldfish all of a sudden? Which fight do you know where a guy's landing punches here on the opponent? Does the referee allow that to go on all night? I mean, the bottom of the glove is below the waistband. It's not even on it. And again, in most fights, if the waistband is below the navel, if the navel is clearly visible, then no punches on the waistband at all are permitted. Understand what the rule is. You're not allowed to punch below the navel in boxing. But the way that Frank Warren and some of these Team Dubois people are carrying on, you would think that it's always been perfectly legitimate and legal to throw combinations on the waistband and even a bit below the waistband. This is absurd. Frank Warren knows it's absurd. Don Charles knows it's absurd. The only person who, as far as I'm concerned, might be genuinely clueless here is Daniel Dubois. But the others know what they're doing. What I will say though, as far as Usyk's ability to continue, because he's saying that if the referee had started counting, he would have gotten up immediately, none of us can know for sure. We weren't the one that took the shot. We're not in Alexander Usyk's shoes. But based upon what I saw, the reaction of Usyk's body, I personally don't believe that he could have gotten up. I think that that punch knocked all of the wind out of him completely, and he was totally debilitated. His arm was shaking uncontrollably. Any of you guys noticed that? One of his arms was shaking uncontrollably. I think that punch completely did him in. I don't think he could have gotten up if the referee had counted to 20. Sometimes body shots, and I'm gonna use the word body shot because it's clearly a low blow, can debilitate you in this way. Yeah, sometimes fighters will play act, and there are people accusing Usyk of play acting. I don't really understand that because Usyk was winning the fight. Usyk was ahead on the cards. He wasn't slowing down and getting tired and all this kind of stuff. So what would be the advantage in that moment of him going down and taking whatever it was, 3.5 minutes? Why would he do that in a fight he was winning and in a fight that he was comfortable in? I mean, if you look at the Anthony Joshua fight, there was a low blow landed by AJ in that fight, and it was a low blow. You can see on the slow-mo replay that it landed low. Alexander Usyk complained, yeah, for a couple seconds, but he didn't take 5 minutes to recover or 3.5 minutes. It was just a few seconds and then the action resumed. But yet with this Daniel Dubois low blow, he took several minutes on the floor. Now, to me, that indicates, and as well as the reaction of his body, him shaking and stuff like that he was really hurt by this punch. I don't think he could have gotten up right away. I think that that's a bit of kidology from Alexander Usyk. I think they could have counted to 20 and he still would have been down on the ground. His body just wasn't responding in the way that he wanted. And that's why he stayed down, because he realized, okay, something's not right here. I'm trying to move, but my body I can't even breathe. And as I said in the post-fight video, I think Usyk is vulnerable to the body. Some fighters are. As fantastic a talent as Alexander Usyk is, everybody has a weakness. And even though it was a low blow, I think Daniel Dubois has once and for all exposed Usyk's weakness. A weakness which showed itself in the amateurs when he fought Artur Beterbiev, who dropped him with a body shot. But in terms of the legitimacy of the blow, no, it was a low blow. End of story. Now we can move on. Are you sick and tired of the mainstream mindset? Does the dogmatic conformity and pathological ignorance have you tearing your hair out in frustration? Then don't be alone. Come and join our brotherhood on Patreon. We stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. You'll gain access to my weekly topical podcast where we take more deep dives than Jacques Cousteau on an endless variety of subjects. There's also videos, interviews, live Q&As, as well as a vast back catalogue of previous episodes, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen via the Patreon app or download in high-quality MP3. Connect with myself and hundreds of other members in our Element chat group. There's no contract, no commitment, you can cancel at any time, and it's cheaper than a Mickey D's McMuffin. Just head to my Patreon page via the link below this video and select the tier called the Brotherhood of Reason. I'll see you over there.